Benji Cole, son of Al Cole from CBS Radio and host of the syndicated talk show, People of Distinction. A talk that gives you an in-depth view of some of the most dynamic, intelligent, and successful people on the planet. Run to our website, alcoleenterprises.com for more info. Email me through benji@alcoleenterprises.com if you'd like to get involved with what we have going. And as always, please continue to like and follow our broadcasts. People of Distinction is internationally syndicated solely due to the love and support that you all continue to give. We're available across all major distributors, and as long as you keep following, we're going to continue to put out the content. Now sit back and strap in, because on the line with us today, we have the impressive John Nicholas Schweitzer. And we're going to be discussing Nick's amazing book, Orestes in the Underworld. Now it's available for purchase through Amazon, Barnes & Noble, man, a whole host of other places. I'm telling you, what you need to do is simply type it into a search bar, and you're going to be greeted with all of it. And when I say all of it, get this. Nick is here presenting this book, but yet this man's got 6 others that he has written, and hopefully many more on the horizon. So you need to head on over there and pick up your copies today, because if you like this one, man, you're going to get lost in all of the other ones. Check it out. I quickly want to take this opportunity and point out the fact that Nick was brought to us by one of the best publishing firms in the business, City of Books. So for my writers out there, if you have gone through your process and now you need some assistance moving that masterpiece, head on over to cityofbooks.com and gather all of the ways that their fantastic team is going to help you do just that. And listen, it is a true pleasure to have Nick here on the line. For my Greek mythology followers out there, man, move to the front, okay? Get to the front of the line, because this is something right up your alley. Even if maybe you dabbled in Greek mythology, maybe this is something you've always had a particular interest in, but never quite got into it fully. This book is going to be a springboard for you, because for those out there that are familiar with the name Orestes, have you ever wondered what happened to him after that blood-soaked drama? You're going to dive into the darkly hilarious underworld where myth meets mischief in this particular book, Orestes in the Underworld. Okay? The long-last play that finally completes the trilogy. Yeah, this is the 4th act, okay? And we're going to sit down with John Nicholas Schweitzer, who dared to complete it, right? He resurrected this ancient romp, blending tragedy with comedy, as Orestes stumbles through Hades. And this is something that you're not going to be able to put down. Sit back, strap in, and get ready for a roller coaster of a ride. Nick, first and foremost, welcome to People of Distinction, and thank you very much for being a guest. How are you doing today, sir?
Thank you for inviting me and for being here. I'm in good health, both physically and, as far as I can tell, mentally. And this interview makes it a particularly good day because it's given me not only the opportunity to talk about my book, but even more importantly, to relive the process of creating it, which you'll hear more about as we go. And Absolutely. How are you?
Nick, I'm doing fantastic, man. Better than I deserve, and I appreciate you asking. Listen, your book, I think, is something special and something that it's been years since I've dabbled in Greek mythology myself, but I was always a very big fan growing up. So this is something that's going to bring me back down memory lane myself, and also inspire a lot of our listening audience members to either get back in themselves if they're like me, or embark upon this journey fully. So we're looking forward to it, man. Before we jump into this amazing book, start by telling us a little bit more about yourself and your background.
I know the focus of the interview is the book, but my background is a lot more than just the author part of me. It's who and what I am. This may not be the sort of answer you usually get to that question, but I'll start by saying that, like you, I'm a member of the human race and kin to all its other members. Second, I'm a male with many of the weaknesses and foibles of that sex, including an imperfect and limited understanding of the opposite gender.
Yeah.
And third, I've grown up in the U.S. in the 20th and 21st century, which has shaped my opinions on history, science, religion, and politics. As for my family background, I'm in my 70s now, and over the past 50 years, after leaving and mostly losing touch with my birth family, I've become a husband, a father, and a grandfather, all of which are central in my life now. I'm blessed and grateful to be no more than an hour away from all the members of that current family, so I get to see them regularly. And finally, more along the lines of what's usually meant by background, I had a profession for 25 years as an attorney and an administrative law judge with the state of Wisconsin, now retired. Probably enough about my background.
Nick, listen, man, first and foremost, continued blessings for you and your beautiful family that you've surrounded yourself with. But I want to now go into inspiration a bit here, man, because your background, as wonderfully impressive as it was, it leaves me a bit curious here, because I want to know, how did you even begin as an author?
That is a very good transition, and I share your confusion. Maybe dispel it for both you and me. At every stage in my education, I've been exposed to great literature. Early on in high school and in college, I wrote a few things here and there. I remember especially a couple of science fiction short stories and a couple of sonnets. But when the short stories were rejected by magazines like Analog and Amazing Stories, at that point I abandoned the idea of being an author. In order to answer the question more fairly, I need to change the word author to writer, which you'll see in a minute. How I began as a writer. I mentioned my profession as an attorney and an administrative law judge. That work gave me a lot of practice writing. It wasn't creative in the sense of fiction or poetry, but I had the opportunity to practice wordsmithing, finding the right words, logic, even telling a coherent story, which is all part of the craft of writing. It's my opinion that to be an artist of any kind, one must first master a craft. And that leads me to express an opinion of artists and art in general. I've reached a point in my writing where I'm now comfortable calling myself a playwright. I write plays, but I wouldn't call myself an artist yet. I'm still lacking a few things. There have been many famous definitions of art. Here's one more. It's a little bit long, but this is what I think of. Art is a creation that is sufficiently attractive to inspire pleasure, sufficiently meaningful to inspire reflection, and that demonstrates subtly the artist's mastery of a craft. The art which is most sophisticated, satisfying, and lasting contains important elements of on more than one scale, inspiring pleasure and reflection for different people on more than one level. So I realize that there are aspects of the craft of writing that I haven't mastered yet. One of those is creating an original plot with original characters. I'm not very skilled at that, and it's reflected in the fact that many of my plays have been historical fiction, in which I've been able to take real characters and an existing plot to try to make them come alive on stage. The first two plays I wrote were Queen Elizabeth, the first, and President Johnson, the first. My earliest full-length play performed was the biography of a local Wisconsin hero, Bob La Follette, and his equally talented wife, Belle. And my earliest produced one-act play told the story of a high school student whose protest against Bible readings in school led to a Supreme Court decision in his favor. I haven't limited myself to historical fiction, as today's book shows, but it's one of my few strengths.
Okay, so I'm picking up what you're putting down. I'm following you down this rabbit hole here, Nick. Who inspired you now to be an author?
Again, I'm going to change the word author, this time to playwright. Who inspired me to be a playwright? And I suppose it's commonplace and even trite to choose Shakespeare, but his plays are truly awe-inspiring in portraying a depth and breadth of characters and events and situations that reflect so much of our human experience. Actually, because Shakespeare's plays are in a superhuman class by themselves, I realized early on that they weren't his, although he wrote them. That sounds like a conspiracy theory, doesn't it? It's not that I side with those who think they were the work of Christopher Marlowe or Francis Bacon. What I mean and what I realized is that he wrote them, but only as the scribe for the Lord Chamberlain's troupe of professional actors. This was their business. I began to see Shakespeare and Company as a corporate entity rather than the sole author of the plays credited to him. I already mentioned that the first play I wrote was about Queen Elizabeth, and in that work I included a scene of Shakespeare and the Lord Chamberlain's men rehearsing and writing a play with each of the actors contributing ideas and situations and actions and words from their past, which they all worked out together, which Shakespeare then copied down, so when they were printed, he received the sole credit as the author. I must say I've always wished I could work for and with a troupe of actors like that. I managed to do that just once on a very short work. It was very satisfying. I've written over 50 plays now, many of which are totally unproducible, but I've had a dozen one-acts and a dozen full-lengths produced, mostly by local community theater groups. But all of my work would have been different, better, more memorable if I'd been able to put myself in Shakespeare's place as the scribe for a troupe of talented professional actors. I still hold on to the lingering hope that someday, before I die or lose all my creative forces, I'll be able to work with a dedicated group of actors who will bring their own ideas and experiences to the story to put together at least one work whose depth and breadth go beyond what this one poor limited writer can create.
People, I'm telling you, this is a book that you need to add to your shelf. Once again, it's called Orestes in the Underworld. While you're at it, check out the 6 others that he has written as well. Whether he wants to call himself an author, a playwright, I'm not going to get into the semantics. Man, he is an artist through and through, in my opinion, and this is one you need to add to your shelf. It's Amazon, it's Barnes & Noble. Head on over there, pick it up. Nick, my next question here for you, man, let's dive in. Let's not hold off any longer. Orestes in the Underworld. Tell us more about it.
For the book to make any sense, I need to lead up to it with a bit of an explanation of the circumstance that led me to write it, including a fairly lengthy but necessary explanation of Greek drama. So, long after completing law school, I took an elective class about law in famous works of literature, like To Kill a Mockingbird. One of the works we read was the ancient Greek drama called the Oresteia, because it described the first jury trial in history. Well, beyond that plot element, which was in the class, it's a cycle of 3 plays written by Aeschylus, who won the first for drama in Athens in 458 BCE. It tells the story of multiple family murders following the Trojan War. King Agamemnon, who led the Greek army to attack Troy, had to sacrifice his daughter Iphigenia to get a favorable wind for sailing. When he returned home after the war, he was murdered by his wife, Queen Clytemnestra. She was then killed by their son Orestes. It is a dark and chilling story from beginning to end, and was referred to throughout Greek mythology as the curse of the house of Atreus. But what actually caught my attention was a note about the many missing pieces of the few Greek plays that have come down to us. The Oresteia is the only complete trilogy that has survived from classical Greece. But even it isn't complete because, as I learned in that class for the first time, all the Greek tragedies actually consisted of 4 plays, with the last one being a complete contrast and a change of tone, a humorous and even ribald work with slapstick and sexual overtones called a satyr, S-A-T-Y-R, play, because it involved those half-man, half-beast creatures usually portrayed with oversized appetites and phalluses, which was apparently to send the audience home in a less gloomy mood, or even laughing. Only one of the myriad Greek satyr plays has survived, and it wasn't the one for the Oresteia, so I resolved then and there to fill that gap. That missing play was the inspiration for me. My book is the satyr play that might have concluded the Oresteia, that would have changed the tone from a grim tragedy to ribald farce. I hope that makes sense. I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about it, but that's enough for now about my book.
Listen, that makes perfect sense, Nick. I want to now go into your writing process, man. Tell us about some of the experiences you had in writing this book.
Thank you so much for asking that. And that's one of the reasons I really am appreciating this interview, because, as I said, it allowed me to go back and remember that. From the moment I had that inspiration, writing it was fun. Just plain fun. As much fun, as someone said, as you can have with your clothes on. And although the process was spread out over many months, it was as close to a flow experience as I ever have. Years before I took that class, my wife and I had traveled to Greece with another couple who were coincidentally doing research for a historical novel on Helen of Troy. And while we were there, the one site I especially wanted to see was the cave at Ephesus, where Persephone was supposed to have been dragged down to the underworld by Hades, creating winter. Now that became the perfect setting for my plot. Mm-hmm. I have found that writing a play is, at its best, like a huge crossword puzzle or picture puzzle with myriad pieces that all need to fit together as seamlessly as possible. Character and dialogue, exposition and plot development, a resolution of some sort, and even entrances and exits all need to be coordinated to fit together. My plot became how to end the cycle of violence, which at the end of the three plays of the Oresteia still stood unresolved between Orestes and the mother he'd murdered. I decided to have him travel to the underworld to ask her to forgive him so that the bitterness and hatred could end before he died and went there himself. Once I conceived that basic plot and set it in Ephesus, I was able to work on fitting all the pieces into place, and I had fun.
Nick, I'm curious, man. You've given us a lot of information so far here today, but tell us some other things that you wanted us to know about you and also about your book.
There is one other aspect of the book and the writing process that I will be very glad to discuss here. It's an opportunity to talk about a preface that I made to the book. As I was putting all the pieces together to make a coherent and workable play, I thought about making it try to seem, quote, real, in the sense of appearing to be the actual missing work that was originally written by Aeschylus, rather than just my new composition. So I dreamed up the idea that I discovered this work. Well, explaining how I could find an ancient Greek text and present it in English wasn't easy. I eventually created a convoluted tale of finding a book by an obscure Spanish playwright in a bookstore in Amsterdam that contained a play called Orestes in el Infierno, which the Spanish author had supposedly translated from a text in Latin. And then I had to explain that I translated the Spanish into English but lost the Spanish original. It's, of course, too far-fetched a story for anyone to believe, but it was like another crossword puzzle for me, providing me with a challenge that was fun to compose and make sense of, at least minimally, and put into the translator's preface, which actually begins my book.
Two-part question with this next one, but who would you say is your intended reader for this book, and what is a main message or something that you hope that they take from your book upon completing it?
Thank you for asking. To be honest, I expect that the audience for this particular work, Orestes in the Underworld, is very specialized and limited. They have to be people who know and understand and care about classic Greek drama, and who preferably already know the Oresteia. So I don't expect commercial success for either my book or any productions of it. It was actually produced here in Madison, Wisconsin a few months ago. And although a few of the audience members managed to enjoy it, I'm afraid that the majority of them were mystified. Some of them even told me so afterward. So I don't expect many casual readers to read or even open this book, despite the publicity you're giving me through this. Thank you so much. But the ones who will appreciate it have a grounding in Greek drama. I hope that those people will appreciate the work as supplying an ending to a classic work of Greek drama that is authentic and believable, as well as innovative and fun. Benji, thank you so much for this opportunity, as I said, not only to talk about the play, but even more importantly for me in this case, to relive the process of creating it, which was an unusually enjoyable experience. Reminded me of just how much fun writing can be. Again, thank you.
Well, Nick, listen, the pleasure was all ours, and we thoroughly enjoyed this discussion. I know it makes sense in terms of people that are already fans of Greek mythology and why they would gravitate towards this. But people, I'm going to put the challenge out for you, even if you aren't. This is a book for you to get lost in, man, because once you start to read it, again, you're speaking to the choir here because I'm already a fan. I love Greek mythology. I think that it is fascinating to get lost in. But this is something that I challenge each and every one of you to get out there and pick up. Check it out. You're not going to be able to put it down. While you're at it, look into the 6 other books. I mentioned it before. I'm going to say it again. Simply type his name into a Google search bar. Head on over to his Amazon and Barnes & Noble pages, and you're going to be greeted with all of them. This is one you need to add to your shelf and pick up because I promise you, man, it is. If you thought you knew Greek drama before, this reimagining will have you questioning everything and just strapping in for a fantastic ride. So listen, sit back, grab a copy, pour some wine, and let the Underworld's most unexpected party begin. And this book is going to help you do just that, man. I promise you. Nick, this has been a true pleasure, man. A real honor. Thank you once again for being a guest on People of Distinction.
It's been the same for me. Thank you so much.